Welcome back, everybody. I am very excited that this first episode of Guess the Eval is starting today. Thank you so much for sending me some interesting positions on YouTube, also on Chessable, and personally, I'm thanking to my own students for also providing me with interesting positions. Now, what I will do very soon, folks, is that I will have a fresh look in those positions. I will give myself 2 to 3 minutes maximum. I will think out loud and I will evaluate those positions with a human eye. I will give my judgment, who is better and with how much. And after that, we will check together with the engine and see how engine agrees or disagrees with my evaluations. This will bring value to you in multiple different ways, folks. Think about that. First of all, you will have a chance to directly observe how a candidate master approaches the position with a human eye. I'll be speaking my thoughts to you. I will be thinking out loud. So that's also great for you to learn because this is a modeling example. You can use me as a model to actually shape your mental models in chess. This is a great way of learning new knowledge, especially for beginners and novice players. This will be great. You can compare your judgment with my judgment. Perhaps your judgments will be better in some positions, and that's interesting. My technical assistant sorted those positions for me. He checked them and he actually came up with the most instructive ones that will fit this video. I have never seen those positions before, and this will be the first time I will observe them with you folks. I'm a little bit excited myself. Hey, I don't want to, lose face. I hope that I'll be successful in this session. I hope my evaluations will be closer to truth. I cannot expect myself to be as great as the engine, but I want to perform good here. Also, evaluation skills differ between masters and casual players, as you know, right? That skill is an important separator of stronger players. They are generally much better in evaluating positions. Check a recent book, Think Like a Super Grandmaster, recently for further information. That's also exactly what they found in that book, that super GMs were much better evaluators than, let's say international masters and FIDE masters and so on. There was a clear correlation with strength. So I hope that my candidate master level will hold nicely in this endeavor. So are you ready to check the first position? I will give myself 3 minutes maximum. If I'm done before 3 minutes, that's fine. I will start checking with you with the engine, but maximum of 3 minutes and constant thinking out loud along the way. Are you ready, folks? We are beginning this endeavor. Let's kick off. I'm setting my timer to 3 minutes and I will start thinking out loud on this position. It's black to move. Thank you, Jim Ken 3856 on YouTube for sending me this position. All right, here we go. Black to play. First observations. It looks like a Sicilian position. Bishop b5, bishop b7 is on the board. Knight f5 comes to mind. Knight f5 is actually would be a good move here positionally, but we have tried to evaluate this position. It's not about finding the best move, but how would you evaluate here? You can, by the way, only evaluate the position if the position is completely clarified, right? If there are so many tactics, like so much things to do in this position, then okay, you cannot really evaluate properly. So it's only quiet positions that can be judged. So I'm just checking whether there are tactics, for example. I mean, I'm seeing a move like knight takes e5, for example, right? I think this is an elementary tactic that should be checked. Because if you take back, then I take back your bishop. And if the bishop captures my bishop, then my knight wants to go back and take that piece. So I'm immediately seeing a tactic in this position, knight takes e5, as a potential candidate. So now I am focusing on that move much more because that's a forcing move and I'm winning material. So of course that move should be checked. So knight takes e5. He can even capture back with the knight, of course, but then I capture back the bishop on b5. It looks very good for black. What else is there in the position? Am I missing something? Knight takes e5, f takes e5, bishop takes b5. Am I missing a counter trick on that position, for example? I mean, yeah, no, I don't see anything. Okay, so, I mean, obviously you can make moves like e6, but it's just, I mean, if you win a pawn for nothing, then of course we should just check for that line first. I'm just Curious whether this is simply a position that black can win a pawn and claim a clear advantage. I mean, unless we are missing something. Unless I'm missing something. I guess you agree with me, right, folks? I mean, what do you think? Knight takes e5 is a clear candidate. And can white punish this? Obviously, I mean, your king, our king side is still sleeping and we're losing time in capturing that pawn. You're right. But, I mean, white's also not positioned to punish us, right? He's also like so many inactive pieces on the queen side. So what I'm probably evaluating right now is knight takes e5 with like +1 for black, right? Like at least +1, I would say. I mean, maybe it's like white is some compensation, sure. I get that. Maybe it's not full pawn for nothing. But I would say it's a very clear advantage for black. So knight takes e5, knight takes e5, bishop takes b5. I mean, unless I'm seeing something like maybe I'm missing something. Yeah? Knight takes e5, knight takes e5, bishop takes b5. Maybe like there are moves like c4, for example, right? Oh, time is out. So I have to make my final judgment, and then I will open the engine and see the truth. So my hunch is that knight takes e5 and black is better. I would say around -1, -0.9 if I had to be precise. -0.8. Okay? I hope I did not miss something. Let's check. Oh boy, it's coming. It's coming. Oh. Oh, okay. Yes, knight takes e5. Knight takes e5 became the best move. But okay, it's maybe not as -0.9 advantage for black. It's less than that. And I guess the answer must be, right? The answer must be that black's king side is sleeping. So white will definitely have some activity compensation for the pawn. Okay? So unless another move comes first, at least we have to trust maybe chess.com engines here, right? That's also, yeah, stock is 16, depth 20 on chess.com. Of course, it might change if we give him more time, but I think overall I was in the right track, right? Just knight takes c5. Obviously, the answer is this, right? If you take my bishop, then I take back the knight and just a clear pawn. So the best line, I also found the best line probably. Yeah, of course, f takes e5 is probably even better because white wants to also activate the rook. And then d3, yes. He's also activating his bishop. There are some threats that we are facing, right? So there's compensation for white. And once you see this position, I think it becomes apparent. It's not like, one full pawn advantage for black. Because I mean, if you make moves like this, knight f5 in this position, I guess there are some issues you're facing. Yeah, maybe like moves like g4 or some other move like knight g5, for example, or just continue developing knight c3. It's not going to be so easy for the black king side to develop, and that's, yeah, I get that. But still, the question was, how do you evaluate this position? And in fact, again, this was a position that involved a tactic, right? So this position was not like completely clean and clarified, right? This was not a quiet position, because you can only evaluate the position if it's quiet, right? Because if there are so many tactics you must see and calculate, it's difficult, right? You just need to figure this position out. You need to settle the position, okay? But I was actually in the right track in this position, and I hope that you also saw this tactic, which is very typical, relatively quickly, as I did, folks. Okay, I think this is the takeaway from this example. Black should definitely go for a pawn, because pawn is a pawn after all here. And but my judgment was maybe a little bit too much in favor of black, okay? Because of probably I, overestimated the beautiful pawns that are controlling the center as well on top of that pawn. Are you ready for one more position, folks? I am ready. I set my clock to 3 minutes, and here we go. Swedish Walrus on Chessable, thank you so much for sending me this position. This was selected by my assistant as a promising one for the series. It's white to play, and I'm gonna start right now to evaluate and give my judgment. Let's join and do the same with me together. Okay? White to play. First observations. Oh my god, what's going on here? It looks like it looks like a crazy position without the queens, but so many imbalances. So many imbalances. It will take time to evaluate this properly. I mean, white is an extra pawn, right? If I'm not counting it incorrectly. Extra pawn, but black is an extra piece, right? That took me some time to figure out. Black is an extra piece, but surely white is compensation, because first of all, white is this beautiful protected passer on d5. The pawn on h6 is also limiting the black pieces. Look at the black pieces on the king side. There are so many buried pieces on over there. The knight on a6 is hanging. Okay, wait a minute. Okay, well, yeah. This will take more time to evaluate properly. Because again, the position is not quiet. That's the problem, right? There are so many forcing moves here to calculate, to have a real judgment. Yeah, that's exactly why I need to slow down here. Actually, this is a position I might give myself a little bit more time because of its chaotic nature, right? I mean, there's just so many lines to check in this position as well. Okay. I mean, the problem is that if I move the knight, he will move his knight to b4. I mean, I can take on a7, for example. But as I said, he will move his knight to b4, and there's no clear follow-up there. I mean, there are even moves like bishop c3, by the way. There are even moves like bishop c3 here with this idea, right? Oh boy, this turns out to be a crazy position. So congratulations, Swedish Wolves, for confusing us. Right, so rook takes a6, bishop takes b5, and I don't see exactly how we follow it up. Yes, there's rook e6 check, but I don't see exactly how you follow that. Oh boy. Okay, the time is already out. Yeah, I will give myself 1 more minute here for this position because it's, you see, it's not a settled position. There are so many tactical lines that you should check before the position settles, before the position becomes quiet for you to use your evaluation functions, right? Like a king safety, piece activity, you know, material and structure, right? This position is totally chaotic still. It doesn't fully settle yet. And yeah, that's why I need 1 more minute here. I don't need to find the best move, by the way. I just need to tell you my evaluation, right? And that's easy. That may be easier than finding the best move here for white. I mean, my intuition is that white clearly has great compensation for the piece, but I'm not sure whether it's actually more than enough, right? Like, does white, for example, have an advantage in this position? That's what I try to figure out. Okay, if I have to give my judgment, then it will be white is slightly better in this position. That's my final call. Maybe 0.4, because I'm seeing all the promising candidate moves. You know, this, maybe this followed by rook e6, right? Maybe knight a7 is not so bad after all. And you know, because then it will win 1 more pawn, for example, potentially the second one, and we'll be claiming these guys are really, really terrible on the king side. Let's look. Let's look. Oh my god, this will be crazy, yeah? Okay. Well, I was in the right track, folks. Bishop c3 I saw. Bishop c3 I saw, remember? Yeah, bishop c3 I saw. This was one of my candidates. I even saw rook a6. Okay, I was in the right track. But you see, my judgment was it's only slightly better, but apparently it was even more better, bigger advantage for white. It's like, now it says 0.95, as you see it, right? Oh boy, oh boy. Okay, it's not so terrible actually. My judgment wasn't so bad. I mean, white is down a piece, and yet white is better. And I think one key line is this in this line, which I didn't have time to, of course, properly see all the lines. Yes, because after bishop c3, there's no way for black to hold this. Obviously, he will take the knight on b5. And then, yes, I saw this line. I saw rook a6 as well. I thought taking on a6 is just better than e5 because there is still a problem, right? Bishop d6 is not possible, for example. Oh my God. Maybe that's the hunch. That's the key for this entire evaluation, that black cannot hold that pawn anymore. I think I'm in the right track here, folks. And things are collapsing for black on the king's side. Beautiful, beautiful position, Swedish followers. But, right, there are more lines to consider probably for black here after bishop c3. Is it, for example, the only move, bishop takes b5? Maybe there are other moves in this position. For example, you're giving control of h6. Maybe they can take on h6. That's why this position is very difficult to evaluate unless you start analyzing moves, right? And of course, maybe 3 minutes was not enough for me to properly judge this. And yet I wasn't so far away. There's also rook a6, by the way. Now the engine is sort of changing its mind. This also, of course, came to my mind. Now it actually gives this line as better for white. But again, the key idea is bishop c3. Okay, you see here, there's only one move that gives white an advantage, and that's bishop c3, which means the entire evaluation, again, hinges on this bishop c3 idea, which I found. I'm very happy that I found that idea, folks. And yeah, what a great position, Swedish followers. Please send me your comment on YouTube how this position came about. Was it one of your own games, or, I mean, were you shocked, for example, to see that in this position white's already better according to the engine, right? Please tell us your story on YouTube. Are you ready for one more position? I am ready. I set my timer to 3 minutes, and now we are going to directly jumping into this position. This position is one of my own students that they sent to me, and then I sent this to my assistant. He checked this position. He found this to be exciting for this video series. He gave it to me, and this is the first time I'm having a look. Black to play. And I just started my timer for 3 minutes. Let's see what's going on, folks. Let's do it all together. Well, equal material, right? Equal material, but white is the bishop pair. In terms of weaknesses, black clearly has weaker pawns in the structure, although you might say e3 is also weak, c2 is also weak, right? What else I'm seeing? I mean, that knight on d3, it looks like an excellent piece. And definitely white's bishop pair is a long-term advantage. The knight on c3 is a good piece. The good things that are actually in black's favor. I mean, there are moves like probably bishop f4, right? Bishop f4s are coming. Although maybe it's not so easy because the a3 pawn is hanging. And yeah, it's a tricky call actually in this position, what to do for black, yeah? I mean, the knight on c6 isn't doing great on this square. But it's also not easy to move it because the b7 pawn is hanging. The rook seems to be okay on a3 actually, on the a file, putting pressure on a3. Okay, so this position is more positional in nature. That's interesting. You might compare the king safety, but you might call the white king to be unsafe. But I mean, again, the bishop actually gives nice protection, and it's not so easy for us to attack the white king. What else are you seeing in this position? What else am I seeing in this position? There are no moves like bishop e4 because he can always take. What is our queen doing on d6? It's not so clear to me. Are we facing a big threat? That's always the first question. What am I missing that question? I mean, that's always the first question, right? Like maybe I'm missing a crazy threat right now, which I must address. I mean, one idea, one forcing move comes to mind, like, okay, you just take the knight, and after queen takes, then you go knight e5, right? Such forcing moves also should be checked, but I don't see exactly how we follow it up after, let's say, queen somewhere. Queen g3, for example. Another tricky position to actually evaluate properly. Because maybe I'm missing a key move for black. That's, again, one of those cases probably, yeah? Maybe the position is not fully settled yet for us to make a judgment. Maybe there's a forcing move here that changes the whole evaluation. Because if black doesn't find that trick, my judgment will be in white's favor in general. Because of those long-term factors, you know, more weaknesses for black, the bishop pair for white. Okay, Time is out. Oh boy, this turns out to be a tricky business now. Okay, so I will give my judgment. I will give my judgment to you. I would say white is slightly better here. And I judge it to be around, 0.2, 0.3 for white. Not a huge advantage, but I would probably prefer playing with the white pieces here. Again, mostly because of my knight on c6 and the queen on d6 not doing much, and white's long-term prospects with those pieces, with the bishop pair and so on. Okay, unless I'm missing a big move, as I said. Let's let's look at this. Let's ask the engine. I was right. Look at this. Well, it's almost equal actually, yeah? I mean, but I said, remember? I told you, white is slightly better. Apparently, it's not even that. Now it actually stabilizes. Now it actually gives equality. Okay, so this turned out to be an equal position. I guess the point is that, despite all the imbalances, this position is equal. How come? Please explain, doctor. I think that's the effectiveness of this position. Okay, it for example gives moves like queen d7, and then it says equal. It's difficult to understand at first sight why queen d7 is played and why is it just equal, right? I guess the point is that despite the appearance, that's my first initial hunch. Why is this position equal? Despite white is a bishop pair, maybe it's not so easy to improve this position either, because the queen has no, let's say, invasion squares. White would love to exchange the queens here, by the way, with moves like queen d5, but it's not possible. And maybe it's not so easy for white to improve either, because I thought maybe he can do this, right? At some point challenge the knight, but this a3 will always going to hurt white. So maybe it's like a deadlock, right, for both sides. Maybe just deadlock for both sides. That neither side can improve its position significantly. Because I thought white should definitely, for example, yeah, queen f4, exactly. I mean, I open my bishop, and I actually sort of improve my queen as well, right? But then the engine says, okay, fine, just go rook e8 and challenge that very important file. And when they take, you take back. And yes, there's less pressure on a3, but that's also good news for black because you take over the e file, and now it's facing moves like knight e2. Okay, apparently the knight on c3 is such a good piece that black is getting great dynamical compensation for structural deficits. Oh my god, this was a tricky example. This was a tricky example, right? Like in this position, again, how do you judge this? My initial hunch was that, yeah, I mean, it looks like white is slightly better, but I don't see exactly how white should treat the position either. But so I should maybe trust my hunch. Maybe I was on the right track when I told you white is slightly better. But maybe even not that. Maybe it's actually completely equal, this position. Yeah, could be. Could be, actually. Because again, white has no clear pawn breaks. I mean, if you go b5, right, you just improve my knight over here. And you cannot push any of your pawns on the queen side. This knight is an excellent blockader, but also cannot move because of this. The bishop is sort of tied down over here. And I want to also, in the long run, challenge the e-file as well with this. Wow. It's a beautiful dynamical balance. Can we talk about dynamical balances? Despite not having a bishop pair, despite having a worse structure, black is keeping an equality because of this beautiful knight on c3, and also probably this guy on a3 as well for white. Beautiful position. Oh, I was sweating in the end, folks. You really got me those tough positions to evaluate, and I hope I did an okay job. I hope you learned something. And in the next round, perhaps you can also send me some positions that are relatively quiet, right? So the positions had settled a little bit, just like in the final example, right? Like there was no immediate forcing moves that could change the picture drastically, right? Because these are the positions that you can evaluate properly. Also, when you calculate lines, right, you should run those forcing moves first in your mind and then evaluate a resulting quiet position when there are no more crazy forcing moves left, so you can properly evaluate that settled position. So I would very much like those kind of quiet positions that we can, digest, and we can go deeper. We can talk about, different aspects, king safety, piece activity, structure, without being so much, let's say, digressed by concrete tactics that are present in that position. You know what I mean, folks, right? But Great positions. I very much enjoyed them, and I hope you also learned something as a result. Please let me know what you thought. Please let me know about your takeaways on YouTube. Maybe you saw something I totally missed, and maybe you also evaluate the position just well as I did, but you used a whole different thought process. That's also interesting, right? Maybe your approach was different, but you ended up in the same point, or maybe you were totally off in some of those positions. Please let me know in the comments below, and I will continue this series. And again, please, I'm waiting for your positions. Send me fresh positions on YouTube. I'll be really checking them. I'll be giving you a shout out, and I'll be recording my next video in this series. Guess the email. Bye bye.